On this next part of the podcast, we're going to go into our season special segment, which is villains of history.
Yes.
I believe. So, babe, tell me, what is the villain that you were highlighting today and how we cannot become like them?
Okay. So I'm going to tell a little bit of the story, and then I'll let you guess who the villain is.
Great.
Before I reveal who they are. So, this is a little bit of point of view, so let me take you on a journey.
Oh,
here.
great. Thank you.
You wake up hungry. Not just, I skip breakfast hungry. The kind that sits in your bones. Your village used to grow its own food. Your family worked the land. You knew what you had. But now, everything is different. The government took control of the farms. They told you it would be better, more efficient, more equal. So you gave your grain and you trusted the system. Weeks pass, then months. The food rations get smaller. Your neighbors stop coming outside. You hear whispers. People are hiding scraps, stealing, disappearing. You go to the local official and you tell him the truth. We don't have enough food. But he doesn't write it down. He doesn't help. Because if he reports failure, he gets punished too. So instead, he reports a record harvest.
Wow.
And that lie moves up the chain. More grain gets taken, more food leaves your village. Now people are collapsing in the streets. Your family starts boiling things that aren't even food. Leather, bark, anything.
Ugh.
And the most terrifying part, the people in charge think everything is working. Or worse, they know it's not, and they refuse to stop. So people begin to die by the millions. Not from war, not from disaster, but from a decision that no one is allowed to question. And the man at the top of it all?
It's a communist pyramid scheme guy. Stalin?
No.
Okay.
Mao.
Mao. I don't know anything about Mao.
I didn't know anything about Mao before this
He's
either.
bad, and he has a red book. That's all I know.
Mao Zedong.
Okay, China, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Mao Zedong, who is he? He was the founder and leader of Communist China from 1949 to 1976.
Okay, a while ago.
So under his rule, tens of millions died. Entire social classes were targeted and destroyed. A little bit of the history behind who Mao is. So he grew up in rural China in the late 1800s. He saw poverty. Sorry, I skipped way ahead on my notes. Let me see. Okay. He saw poverty, inequality, and weak leadership. And he developed a belief early on. China needed to be completely remade. Not slowly fixed. Completely remade. He was drawn to revolutionary thinking, especially communism. So during the Chinese Civil War, Mao learned that violence worked.
Interesting.
So he executed landowners, crushed opposition, and used fear as a tool.
It's kind of like Genghis Khan. It worked. Violence and fear worked.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly like Genghis. So by the time he takes power in 1949, Mao already believes one concrete thing. You can't build a new world without destroying the old one. So Mao wants to transform China instantly.
Right. Like remake it. Not
Yes, completely. But instead of adapting what's already there, instead of adapting when things fail, he doubles down. So he begins to see people are starving and he doubles down. So even as people are starving, like we talked about in the story, reports are falsified, criticism is silenced, and policies continue. So my question to you is refusing to admit failure one of the most dangerous traits a leader can have?
Oh, I think that's huge. I think that the majority of leaders throughout history we could look back on and they just wouldn't admit things weren't going right, and continue on with the failure for their own party's good or their own, legacy.
Can you think of any like examples from your own life?
Where I wouldn't admit failure?
Either that or you've seen a leader kind of fall from grace just because they wouldn't admit failure.
Oh, I mean, just about every president in our lifetime, I think, has had moments of that where they didn't admit failure. I don't know, fully fall from grace, but, or even presidents who would say are good presidents, but like wouldn't admit, like, yeah, that didn't go too well.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Well, part of it, I think, in the American political system is because it threatens, like, their whole political party, maybe their family legacy. It's a bad indictment on their religion or donors who have given to them, a variety of things. But also, I think that statistically, the majority of like presidents or like political leaders tend to be a little bit more narcissistic or think that have an inflated view of themselves as well. Or maybe not fully in touch with the reality. I don't know. But I think it's human nature. We don't really want to admit that we messed up.
Yeah. I think it's systemic too. It's systemic from family, probably a wrong base of family core values. You know, if you're wrong and you're growing up and you're disciplined harshly because you're wrong.
Yeah.
Until you're right. And then we say, hey, we accept you, and that's great. You did something right. I think it teaches you, as long as I'm not caught, or as long as I don't admit it,
right,
then I'm not going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And so I think it probably goes down to a family level.
Yeah.
Like a nurture level when it comes to people, when it comes to just being unable to admit you're wrong when you are.
Yeah.
It's probably just fear.
Right.
Based out of fear.
Yeah. So with back to Mao, did I miss how he came into like leadership? So you said he was a peasant.
Yeah.
Farmer.
So during the Chinese Civil War, he kind of just became a hero, a bit of a hero, and learned, like I said, that violence worked.
Right.
And so he fought his way to the top and took over China.
And then he's like, okay, we're going to have the I want to say the country, the government collect everybody's food and then redistribute it to them.
Yes.
But there was a lack of food.
Yes.
And so the people under him who were taking the food and redistributing it, they weren't even telling him because they didn't want to get in trouble or admit, hey, this isn't working. Exactly. Interesting.
So it's weak leadership makes weak followers, I think, because those people, he was afraid probably to admit that his system wasn't working because he doubled down on it. Right. And they were afraid to tell him it wasn't working because he was so harsh in his punishment.
Interesting.
So a little bit more about it getting worse as he was reigning. So there's something called the Cultural Revolution from 1966 to 1976. And this was a massive political and social campaign led by Mao to reassert control over China and enforce the communist ideology. So in simple terms, Mao tried to reset Chinese society by destroying anything he saw as old, traditional, or a threat to his power.
Interesting. Getting rid of tradition. Huh. That's so important for a country.
Yes. Yeah. So he actually believed the country was drifting away from communism. So this is kind of a hard reset. Like we talked about earlier, he likes to just, we're going to destroy everything old and get to the new as fast as possible. So he launched what they call the Cultural Revolution to eliminate capitalists and traditional influences, to reassert his personal control and to purge anyone who disagreed with him. He framed it as a movement to protect the revolution. In reality, it became like chaos everywhere. So Mao mobilized millions of young people. He called them the Red Guards. Okay. And they were told to attack enemies of the revolution. So loyalty to Mao became everything. So what these kids basically did is they would report on their neighbors if their neighbors weren't living a communist lifestyle or reading things that weren't communist propaganda. Wow. Kind of similar to the Hitler Youth.
I was going to say the Hitler Youth. Or
Hitler, Luther Jr.
like people during COVID who would like inform on their neighbors if they had friends over for dinner, like in Canada or countries like that.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I've never really put that together until reading this about the Hitler Youth and the Red Guard. Maybe that's something that just happens in terrible regimes.
Yeah.
The youth really go hard. Anyways, it continues. He continued to destroy culture as much as he could. So temples, books, art, and historical sites were destroyed. Wow. Old traditions labeled as dangerous, and intellectual life basically was wiped out.
How fascinating, because Genghis Khan, he was all about still preserving people's like religion and culture as long as they like follow him.
Yes.
Whereas Mao's like solution was like, let's just get rid of clean slate.
Mm-hmm. Except for his ideology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Except for his. Exactly.
So there's a lot of public humiliation during this time. So people accused of disloyalty were dragged into the streets. They were forced into what they called struggle sessions, which would just be public humiliation and beatings. And a lot of them were imprisoned, killed, or sent to gulag camps.
Crazy.
Like prison camps to work for re-education. There was widespread persecution. So teachers, professors, officials were targeted, and families turned against each other with the Red Guard, like I had mentioned earlier. A lot of people sent to labor camps. So when we like compress how many people died over his rule, in the Cultural Revolution, 1 to 2 million died.
Wow.
It is theorized that 30 to 40 million people starved to death.
Whoa.
Under Mao.
So like 1 to 2 million were killed by like military or soldiers or things like that.
Yeah.
And then 30 to 40 million just starved.
Starved. You could say just starved. I have to correct myself a little bit here. There was a lot of forced labor.
Okay.
But they were also starving doing forced labor.
Yeah.
And there was also concentration camp working without any food, So It was starving, but there were a lot of other factors that played into it.
Wow.
And they estimate it could have been from, like I said, 20 to 40. Some people say 15 to 45 million people died just from that. So the total, there's people debate what the total death toll is, but it could go up to 70 million.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's even more than Genghis Khan.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
The critical truth here is that these policies continued despite the suffering that they were causing.
Yeah.
And speaking out was one of the big things that got you punished in his regime. So I think what we could take away, what my takeaway from this was obviously if you see a leader who's up and coming and they have any traits of not being able to admit to their mistakes, and continuing to double down on things that aren't already working.
Yeah.
I think those are two red flags. But more than anything, for me, my takeaway was just be humble and just say I was wrong. Mm-hmm. I think that you can't go wrong as a good leader of your own household.
Yeah.
If you're being the first one to admit when you make a mistake. And also, especially when you have little youngins looking at you or a wife looking at you.
Right.
And you're trying to be a good example of who Jesus wants you to be.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity no matter who the Lord has set you over, whether that's a small group or an actual family, you have an opportunity to be a good leader. And I think the number one thing we could take away from this, and the number one thing I think makes a good leader is humility. So just admit when you're wrong, take the blows, and get back up.
Wow, it's so good.
Yeah. Any takeaways for you?
No, I mean, I think that's just, we all need to, in our own personal lives, get better at admitting I'm wrong. Even about little things. I would say that I think that I'm a wealth of knowledge of random facts. And then sometimes I'll say things and I'm like, I don't know if that's real. And sometimes I'm just like, oh, I was wrong about that. Yeah. I've just gotten a lot better about, quickly just being like, oops,
Yes.
Because if you don't do that with little things, then you can tend to snowball into not admitting you're wrong when things really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did Mao's reign end?
I honestly don't know.
Oh. Didn't get to that part of his life.
I mean, I was just so...
I'm just interested.
He died on September 9th, 1976 at the age of 82 following a series of heart attacks from long-term illness.
So he didn't get
so
into
crazy.
his rule until like his 50s then, 60s.
I don't think so.
A little bit later on in life.
But my mom was alive.
Yeah.
While he was alive. That's so insane.
That's crazy.
To think about.
You said he died in 77?
76.
76, yeah.
My mom and
parents
dad
were
were
alive as well.
Crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah. But series of heart attacks.
Wow.
We all got to die.
Interesting. Huh. I really don't know anything about that kind of time in history. I don't know, I think growing up in school, we focused mainly on American and like European history and then some world stuff, but obviously not much Asian history.
Same.
Yeah.
And you got to think about it. The 1900s were insane because you had World War I, World War II, and then Mao on the other side of the world killing upwards of 40 million, maybe up to 70 million people. And so we lost millions.
We had the Vietnam War, the Korean War.
Oh my
just all that stuff in there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Millions of people.
What a crazy time in history.
And yet we still have 8 billion people on the planet, which is pretty insane.
And growing.
Yeah, growing.
Wow.
I know.
Fascinating. Huh. Well, it's cool to learn a little bit about him. And yeah, kind of his main thing was not admitting he was wrong. Because there can be I'm pro-socialism or at all. But there can be some helpful values or concepts in it.
Yes.
Like, providing for people. Everybody gets their fair share, all that. But he didn't admit, like, hey, this isn't working to the point of people are starving to death.
Yeah.
All over. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I understand that's a strange line to walk if you're a leader of a nation to be able to say, this didn't work because it invites criticism.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, remember that time that huge thing you tried didn't work? Why should we reelect you?
Right.
Why should we keep you as our leader?
Especially with someone like Mao, who it doesn't seem like was just like in a fair and free election elected to be their he was just a dictator.
Yeah.
Even more so as a dictator, you're not going to be like, oops, I messed up.
Yeah. That's so funny. You could be a benevolent dictator, You could be kind.
Yeah.
They choose not to be.
Love it. So interesting.
Yeah.
Great one to choose.
Thank you.